God will not give us a commandment without providing a way for us to fulfill that commandment. So I made God my business partner, and I talked to him every night and multiple times a day. I would drive to work without the radio on and without any distraction, and just find ways to talk to him about what I needed to do next.
Welcome to another episode of The Financially Free Investor, where you will learn information and strategies on how to become financially independent by investing in real estate, something that is not taught openly in our society today. Financial freedom matters so you can live a bigger life, retire early, and do what matters most to you. Get ready to hear tried and true methods to becoming financially free with your host, Jordy Clark.
Hey everyone, welcome into another episode of The Financially Free Investor. So today I've got an awesome guest on. His name is Jason Bickley. I got to know Jason, it was probably 6 months ago now. He joined GoBundance, and he's a part of our Utah chapter here. And when we went to lunch, just started to learn more about him. And Jason is just one of the most authentic, kind, giving, caring people I think I've ever met. And he's a great father, great husband, trying to be a great role model for people in his church. And I thought it would be awesome to bring him on and have him as a guest, and also selfishly get to know him a little bit better. So welcome in, Jason.
Thanks. Great to meet you, or great to be with you, I should say.
Yeah, man. Well, dude, maybe let's just jump in with like a 3 to 5 minute version of who you are, where you've come from, and kind of just tell people your story.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack. I think I've counted off a few different times. I moved either 13 or 14 times before I moved out of my parents' house. So we grew up moving a lot. So there's a lot to unpack. But the short of it is I was born in southeastern Texas, and my parents moved me around a lot as a infant and toddler because my dad was a third generation beekeeper, of all things. Didn't know that most people don't even know that exists, but yeah, my dad was a third generation beekeeper, and we moved all over the place, ended up in Idaho. My dad worked hard but struggled to provide at times in my life. I think there was a time when we moved, I think, just a few times within 1 year, and he was working 3 or 4 jobs at once. So it came from very much a blue collar family, and I think that's honorable. I'm grateful for that heritage. I think there's obviously there's lessons learned, and as I look back, I'm grateful for my dad's example of just kind of that relentless work ethic that he provided to provide a life for us. As I grew up, decided I wanted to go to college. Well, eventually we moved down to Utah, went to high school in Utah, and then decided I wanted to go to college. Went to the U. My parents said, "That's great, you want to go to college? If you ever need a meal, you're more than welcome to come home, but we can't help you much outside of that." So paid my way through college. Then I was determined that I was going to escape college debt free, and it was a relentless grind. I was newlywed just shortly after starting college, and there's a lot of things I do go back and do differently, but just to summarize things, I would get up at about 5 a.m, pedal my bike to school, go to the gym, go to school, then go to work a full day's work, go back to the school from about 6 or 7 till 10, go back home, try and study somewhere in between the busy schedule, and then wake up the next day, rinse and repeat. So it was a very grueling time of life, and my wife and I learned to live on nothing. Then, lucky enough for us, I graduated in 2008, which was the start of the Great Recession. And there are just job opportunities everywhere. I just couldn't pick. There were so many. But we struggled, and financially, luckily we learned to live on nothing during college, and we just got the privilege of perpetuating that after college. So we settled down in Davis County. I got into real estate when everybody was running away from it in 2009, and I've been doing it kind of as a side hustle since then.
Cool. And after since that, you've had a few kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kids, fun part. Yeah, so we had our first in 2005. I'm sorry, no, 2008. I was married in 2005. Jordy, I'm getting old. I can't remember these dates. Yeah, so I was married in 2005, graduated in 2008, and had our first child. And it was like, I kid you not, I graduated, we moved into a new house, and we had a baby all in the same week. That was a wild week. So May 25th, 2005 is when our family grew by one. We have 4 children now, 14-year-old, 11-year-old, 9-year-old, and our caboose is 5. And we have a blast. We do anything we can to get outdoors when I'm not working.
So you paid your way through college. How did you do that, and why did you do that? Because I think it's interesting that in today's I'll call it our culture. I don't necessarily think I'm within that, but America as a whole is like, just, go get student loans for 3%, 4%, interest. And, I know people that say they're never going to pay their student loans off. But what made you want to get through college debt free? And
That's a good question. I think there's a few things. One, I watched my parents growing up just struggle, as I shared with you. And they encouraged me for something different. I wanted to do something different. And I watched, just like you said, our culture of everybody getting in this debt cycle. And I was determined that I was not going to fall into that debt cycle, whether it was the car loans, the student loans, the home loans, the credit cards. I don't even think we had a credit card for the first. Actually, we had a credit card and it was a mistake, and we paid it off quickly, and then we didn't have a credit card for the first probably 10 years of our marriage. So I was just determined not to fall into that debt cycle. Probably started because if you go back to my high school years, I was weird. I think the only book that I read cover to cover, other than my scriptures, was Rich Dad, Poor Dad in my high school experience. So I didn't get a lot of good grades, but I did get some good wisdom out of that book.
that's awesome. So you read the Black Bible and the Purple Bible.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Cool.
And if you're LDS, the Blue Bible.
Blue Bible. I was gonna say, yeah. That's awesome. So, I mean, your kids are kind of getting to this age where, they're gonna 14, like, they're gonna be driving soon. They're gonna be looking at cars. They're gonna be, immersed in our culture. So, what are you gonna do to teach them? And I'm asking because I'm a few years behind you, but we got a 7, 2, and a 0-year-old. And I'm thinking through like some of these decisions, like how am I going to teach them about cars? And I've been fortunate enough to make a fair amount, and I don't know that my kids are ever going to make that. I hope they do, but statistically maybe they won't, right? So what are you going to do to help set your kids up knowledge wise to become high functioning adults that don't make huge financial mistakes?
Good question. This is something I've thought a lot about. When Amanda and I were earlier on in our marriage, I have said, and to her and to many others, that me having to go out and find a way to pay for my own first car was one of the greatest lessons of my life. Similar to my college experience, as difficult as it was, it taught me to value something that no one else around me was valuing. I watched kids, drive their cars into a wall and no big deal. They got grounded for a week, and then mom and dad bought them a new one. And for me, it was like I babied that thing because I knew how much I had to pay for it, what my insurance cost, what my gas cost, and what my car payment was. And so for me, it taught me an incredible amount of responsibility early on that I don't want to take that away from my children. So I've thought a lot about, okay, do I need to give them that same experience? Or is there a different way to give them that same experience? So far, the line I've drawn with my daughter is I've set the expectation that she will pay for her own car, with the caveat that I challenged her and any of my children, that if they will learn to play the piano better than I do, I will pay for half their car. That was just a silly challenge. And if you know me and know how much I play the piano, that bar is not very high. But nevertheless, I want my children to see the value of earning something and building something. To this day, each of our children have green light cards, which is kind of like it's a debit card for kids, where my wife and I can put money into their account when they do projects or when they earn things. Like the other day, my boy got up before I was even out and shoveled the walks for us. I didn't ask him. And it was just one of those things where I was like, I'm grateful for that. And there is opportunities to serve, but this time I'm going to pay him for it. So I said, hey bud, thanks. We'll transfer $5 to you for shoveling the walks. So we're trying to teach them work ethic and the value that you receive by, putting yourself out there. I don't know the final answer of how am I going to approach the car situation, but so far, I think that they will have skin in the game. I just don't know what it looks like.
Yeah.
And similar with the college experience, I think there's just value in it, Jordy. I think when we have to, I just paid $25 for Questar Gas to come to my house and do an energy survey, and they're talking about coming for 2.5 hours. And for a second, I cocked my head and realized, like, okay, $25, 2.5 hours. Who's showing up for $7 an hour, whatever that is? And then I realized, no, that isn't that. They're subsidizing that, obviously, but me just being willing to pay the $25 as a consumer, I'm committed, and therefore I'm committed to the process, and I'll show up just like they want me to show up. And I think that that's probably the approach I will take with my children, is that there will be a price to play. I'll probably subsidize it though.
So good. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but I always, like, my wife and I, we wrestle on, like, how much do we give our kids? Because obviously we want our kids to have a better childhood than we did, more opportunities, trips, whatever that looks like. But then, like, we talked offline before that my wife had a similar experience where she moved like 18 times in 18 years before she was 16. And we didn't grow up with money. She certainly didn't grow up with money. Like, we grew up more middle class maybe. And not to say like either of our parents did anything wrong, yet like that struggle, that's what pushed us to go out and figure out, like, hey, how do we make more money? How do we invest money? How do we do all of these things to live a better life? But I guess the point I'm getting at is, I don't just want to give everything to my kids, because then I think that turns them into entitled or spoiled or soft or whatever word you want to use. That's just like, not like, it's just money, right? But just having money whenever you want I think it'll ruin, or yeah, it can ruin kids. Like, you look at lottery winners and most of them are broke 5 years later. They get this windfall of cash, they just don't know how to manage it. So yeah.
Well, the other thing is, dude, my wife and I talk a lot about, we're not raising kids. We're raising good humans, right? We're raising adults. And so if we treat our kids like kids, if we don't give them the responsibility, the opportunity to fail, the opportunity to grow, then they are going to fall flat on their face when they get out on their own. And that would be a disservice that I would give to them as a parent. So I want to give them the opportunities to fail, to grow, to, to learn all those life lessons. And the more opportunity we can give them to learn those life lessons, the hard ones, when they're under our wings, the better off they are going to be when they get out on their own. And it's more difficult to do that as a parent than it is to just give them everything. Because the easiest thing for me would be to say, all right, Nora, here you go. Here's this car. We just got it for you. Happy birthday. She's going to jump up and down with excitement. And then she's going to go take off on her own. And I don't have to manage expectations. I don't have to help her get a job. I don't have to help her get to and from work. I don't have to remind her that, hey, in addition to job, you got to keep your grades up. All those responsibilities I don't have to manage because I just gave her everything. It's easier for me as a parent, and that's difficult. I've even thought about that a lot in our, the way we educate our kids. A lot of times I'm not satisfied with our school system. Problem is, I don't do anything about it because it's easier for me as a parent to just send them off, let somebody else do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting to think about. When you get out of college, you jumped into real estate on the side. What did that look like?
Yeah. Well, actually, it probably started in college. I was preparing for something else. I was talking to my wife a little bit about this. And I think I got interested in real estate when I just got back from at LDS mission and was just getting into college. And a contact there put me in touch with someone else that had an apartment complex downtown. And he hit me up with this awesome deal that he was going to hook me up and I was going to manage this property for them. And in trade, they were going to give me free rent. And after, I think it was 2 years that my wife and I did that, she kind of managed the billing side of things. And I showed up and shoveled snow at, 4-5 in the morning before I had to go to school at 6 in the morning, and things like that, and ran the maintenance. But we watched while we were, grueling out grinding out the management side of things. We just send these massive checks to this guy that we didn't know all that well. And he was just raking it in. And I wanted to be on the other side of it. Fast forward a few years, in 2009, when everybody was running away from real estate, a good friend of mine from high school, he and I had done some other, side hustles before. He found this place in South Ogden that had massive fire damage. And we pooled our life savings together, and we didn't have enough. So we got his brother to pool his life savings in with us. And we bought this dive. And we bought it for 50 grand, which was like, it was an enormous amount to us, overwhelming. And we spent the entire summer of 2009 working on that place. And we all wanted to kill each other. And I think our wives wanted to kill us. And at the end, we walked away having more than tripled our money. And we thought we were the richest guys on the planet because it was more money than either of us had really seen or earned, probably in a year to that point. And so we kind of just got the bug, and we did that repeatedly on the side. We had someone that we found that was feeding us deals, and we did that on the side for a few years.
So would you guys do the work? I assume you were flipping it, or did you hold them as rentals?
We were flipping at that point, and we did all the work. Like, dude, I kid you not, I learned how to wire an entire house, stripped off 2 layers of roof and re-roofed the house. We did all the plumbing, we did framing, we moved the entire entrance of the house, all new kitchen cabinets. We did 100% of it. Thank you, YouTube.
That's great.
I'm not joking you. It was quite the grind.
Yeah,
and if I could go back, if we had more money, and if I could go back, I would like to say that I would hire it out. I've learned to hire things out now, but we were poor enough and dumb enough that we just signed up to do it all.
Well, I don't think it's dumb or smart or one way or another. Like, it just is what it is. But at that time, what were you doing full time?
I was actually working in real estate for a company that I'll remain nameless, the largest home builder in Utah at the time. And it actually was shortly thereafter that the owner came in to me with this wonderful opportunity where he essentially told me that he was going to um, cut my salary by 30% and give me the opportunity to sell nights and weekends. So I was running marketing for all of Davis and Weber County, northern Utah. And he was like, "Hey, Jason, we got this great opportunity. We're going to let you sell homes on the nights and weekends. You still have to work a full-time job during the week, but because we're going to let you sell houses at a discount rate on nights and weekends, we're going to have to cut your salary." And I'm sitting there thinking, wait, so I get to do my job for a lower rate and I get to sell houses in a market when you can't pay people to take these things? I'm out, and it was, I used to be very upset and very resentful with the guy and say that if I ever met him again, I'd probably punch him in the face. But now I look back and it was one of the greatest blessings in my life.
Why do you say it's one of the greatest blessings of your life?
Dude, I was so stagnant there. It was an hourly wage, and I don't do well with hourly work. I fall off the train. I'm very motivated when it comes to I don't know how to put it other than transactional, maybe is the best word I can think of. Transactional work where I know that if I give this level of effort, I get this result. I do well with that. I don't do well with hourly work. I was stagnant. My wife and I were barely scraping by on what we were making there. And we wanted for more and I couldn't figure out how to get more. And, I think that when we get put in difficult positions, when our back's against the wall, that's when we get the opportunity to really prove ourselves and to shine. And that's what it did for me and for us as a couple.
Man, so good.
And I will say this, dude. I hopefully you don't mind me taking it this direction, but and hopefully I can share this without getting emotional. That led to probably, well, it would have been 2000. I think I finally got laid, or I finally just walked out in 2010. And for the next probably 3 years, I spent countless hours on my knees trying to figure out what to do. Like it was grueling. I drove a 1994 GMC Sierra with a rusted hood. You didn't even need a key to start it or to unlock it. It ticked like a time bomb every time you started it. And it took a quart of oil every time you filled it up with gas. And when I was getting started my work, I was embarrassed. I would either make my wife drive it and I'd take the grocery getter to work if I had to drive someone, or I'd park in the North 40, the parking lot. And I learned so much of what our life is in a partnership with God in that time. I realized that God gave us a commandment through Adam and Eve. When Adam and Eve came to the earth, he gave them a commandment to provide for themselves and their family. And that commandment transferred over to us. And it's my belief, and it's, in the scriptures, that God will not give us a commandment without providing a way for us to fulfill that commandment. And so I made God my business partner, and I talked to him every night and multiple times a day. I would drive to work without the radio on and without any distraction, and just find ways to talk to him about what I needed to do next. And there's been times in the last few years that I've forgotten about that. Even just last month, and my wife had to, remind me with a smile, see, it worked out again, but it was an incredibly valuable lesson that I learned that I wouldn't have learned had I not been put in that position.
Man, thank you for sharing that. I hope everyone that's listening rewinds that and listens to it again, because I think, at the end of the day, it's been my experience. If people don't have money, they want money and they think it's going to make them happy. And then they get money, and like if they're not internally happy, no amount of money will make them happy. But just knowing like that divine purpose and reason that like we exist, I think goes a long way. And just being able to reconnect and like you said, in a roundabout way, like it's something that you have to continually work at, where it's like working out, right? You can't work out once in high school and be like, I'm done. I got 70 years of no working out, right? Like your body decays. And so just thinking about like that connection, and if people don't believe in God, then the universe, whatever you want to call it, but just being able to plug in and figure out a bigger purpose than yourself in this life will help pull you through, in my opinion, anything you're going through. So
I agree.
and I think you said it way better than me. I'm just trying to recap your amazing message here. So what happened after that? Maybe next steps. So take us to like 2014-ish.
Yeah. So I started a new gig in high tech sales, which was a grind for the first few years. And then on the side, my buddy and I continued to do anything we could to scrape together an income. We kept flipping houses. Again, this was deep in the recession, right? This is we knew that if we identified a buyer's market of if we could find houses that we could buy and flip and sell and make and have a padded profit in it and keep the price to the buyer at under $200,000, then we had a win. And so that's what we did. We just found properties in that low $100,000 space, did a remodel on them, and then sold them for the high 100s, just shy of 200,000. As long as we were in that space, we were doing well. But that was, you do the math. We were doing it as a side hustle. We were doing 99%, if not 100% of the work ourselves. And we had growing families, and it was too much. And so in 2014, we kind of stopped doing 2014 or 2015. We stopped doing the flipping, and we took the money that we had built up. I should add that every penny that we made in flipping homes, we just reinvested. So we never took a dime out. And so we took that pool of funds that we built up over the few years that we were doing that, and we started doing hard money lending. And so we've done hard money lending and continue to do so since then. And my wife and I have also purchased some rentals, some small multifamily and single family rentals on the side. And then my buddy and I do the hard money lending, and then we've recently got into some entitlement projects as well.
That's awesome. And this is still on the side because you're still full-time selling high tech.
Yeah. Still gainfully employed, at least for the time being.
I think that's important for people to realize too, because in GoBundance, which we're both a part of, and just other things, I feel like so many people look down on the W-2, but
Right.
I think it's more a question of, well, do you enjoy what you're doing or not? Because like you said earlier, like we're all here to provide for our families, and like without work, like I think there's this fairy tale out there that if you buy enough real estate, you'll never have to work again. Right? And you get to this
Wait, so that's not true?
Well, how about it's true if you want it to be true?
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Like if you want to go live on a beach, like you'll go live on a beach. For me, I found that like it's more of a fairy tale for me because I'm like, well, I'm probably not gonna like do nothing, right?
Right.
Because things change. Maybe you buy a bigger house and all of a sudden you have a bigger payment, or maybe I don't know, you just decide like after a month on the beach, you're like, this is boring, like I'm not doing anything purposeful with my life. And then it becomes about so much more than just the selfish you, right? So I think money is just a magnifier. Side note. But going back to this negative connotation on a W-2, like why have you stuck with your W-2 for so long? Because I want people, like, if you don't like your job, go quit it. I'm not saying stick with something you hate, but I'm also saying don't quit something that you love just because you think that the pasture on the other side is greener. So I'd love to hear why you've stuck with your W-2 for so long.
Yeah. This is a good question that I've tossed around a lot. Because if I'm being fully authentic with you, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming for me and my wife and my family that I've got the rentals that we maintain, got the hard money lending that we maintain. We've got the entitlement project that we're doing. We've got the other investments we work on. We've got, I have a W-2 job that is actually pretty dang taxing at times and has been, especially for the last 3 years. And then on top of that, we've got, the service that we do with our church. And, I help coach my kids' soccer teams. And so it just creates this overwhelming life. And it would be easy for me to say, I'm done. And there's been plenty of times where I've said that and my wife said that, right? We've got to trim from the schedule somewhere. But I liked the passage that I found in a book. One of my favorite authors said that he for a long time he was an attorney, and until he was able to get to the point in his life that he could quit his work as being an attorney, he just viewed it as fundraising. And I like that. I think that we are all chasing this utopistic, I don't know what the word is, the utopian view of having this perfect job that changes the world, that we love so much, that that makes us wonderfully wealthy. And that's hard to find. I believe that those are out there, but I think that it's hard to find. And for me, I don't hate my job. Sometimes I get frustrated with it, and there's sometimes it's overwhelmingly stressful for me. But if I look at it as this is something that I'm doing as a fundraising event to provide a life for my family and to get us to our end game, it just helps me to change things, and it just provides me a better why. I don't know if that's what I don't know if that's necessarily the perfect answer, but it's the way I've made peace with it, with the work that I do. And truthfully, Jordy, we wouldn't be in the position that we're in if I had quit. We've been very, very fortunate, and my because I've had some staying power at my work, things have kind of gone in my favor a little bit, which I'm grateful for. But I shared with you that my wife and I learned to live on nearly nothing during our early marriage. As our income has scaled up, our lifestyle has had we have had lifestyle creep. Our lifestyle has scaled up, but not at the same pace of our income. I've been pretty dang determined that, one, going back to the way we want to raise our kids that you and I talked about, and two, just in effort of creating this life that we want in the future, that we weren't going to live up to or above our income. We just kept our lifestyle pretty dang simple. And then as our incomes creeped up, we've just been able to reinvest that into real estate and other investments.
There's a lot of gold in that. How do you budget or determine like, hey, this is where we're going to allow our lifestyle to increase. Because, I mean, I believe like it's just money, right? When we die, it all goes away, but what we take with us are experiences and who we become. And so, at a certain point, I know guys that make a ton of money and they spend like 40 grand a year living. And, I'm like, dude, you make 7+ figures. Like, why are you only spending this much living? And it's so much like almost toxic, right? The other way. And then you
Yeah.
have toxicity go the other way where you're spending way more than you make and it's just not sustainable at all, right? But how do you guys determine like, hey, we're making more consistently, like we're going to increase here, like what? I'm just curious.
Oh, this is a hard one for me, actually. So I guess the best way I would put it is that I'm always saving more than my wife would like to save, and my wife likes to spend more than I would like to spend. I don't know if that makes sense. And it's something that we've had to work with a lot, or work through a lot in our marriage. We've kind of um, you know, settled on a number where, if we can just maintain our life at this is a good value that we can have a good life if at this number. And we've kind of just agreed on that number, and we kind of, I wouldn't say we do a great job of budgeting. We've been in the incredibly lean years where we counted every penny in and out, and it was stressful, and I hated it and she hated it. And um but now we just kind of have some big round numbers of, hey, we need X amount of dollars in our checking account. And I was just sharing this with her the other day. I think that what we have comes from God. Going back to kind of the way I learned things in like the 2008 2010 timeframe. I believe that everything we have comes from God, that we are stewards over what we are given. And so, I was sharing with her, I just, see this, what we have coming in as this funnel. And if we take off what we need for our lifestyle and our life to support ourselves, and then the rest of that funnel goes into building, the life that we want. And, I agree with you also that, dude, the one of my most favorite things that my wife has brought to our marriage is this love of travel and adventure. And she's definitely given me that bug. And, we've done some incredible things as a family. And I don't look back and think, geez, that cost us $3,000, or that cost us, it's like, I really don't look back and think very much about how much that Disneyland trip cost back in October, or the time we drove, we road trip to Coeur d'Alene, or, dude, we had the opportunity to live in freaking Hawaii for almost 5 weeks. And it was one of those things that my kids will remember and talk about for the rest of their lives. And last night, my daughter was in our bedroom, dealing with some teenage drama. And she's like, I just want to go back to Hawaii. Can we just go back to Hawaii and live there? And I was like, yes, victory, And I want to do more things like that. And I'm going to keep rambling here. I want to do more things like that more than I want to have things. Because having things just creates more noise and more complexity in my life. Doing those things gives me value and creates happiness for our family.
Man, that's so good. I just want to ask you a couple more questions and then we'll put a nice bow on this because I think you've given tons and tons of gold. So, what would you tell somebody who is new or just getting started on this path to financial freedom? Maybe they're looking at buying their first rental property. Maybe they're looking at doing a flip on the side. What would you tell them? What's a one piece of advice?
I would just say, especially right now, cash is king, especially right now. One, it has to cash flow. And two, if you can come up with the more that you can have to put into the deal, the less the more it reduces your risk. And so the more cash flow you have coming out, And the more cash you have to put into it reduces that risk overall. And then second to that is always have a plan B and a plan C. And that's why I think every deal we had was successful, because we always had a plan B and a plan C. And I guess maybe just from a that's very practical. I always go to the practical side. Just maybe from a big picture standpoint, it's really not as difficult as you think it's going to be. I make things so difficult in my mind, and at the end of the day, I overanalyze every decision. And at the end of the day, everything that we have done, so long as I've remembered just the basic fundamentals, we have been successful in. And the regrets that I have in my life from an investment standpoint, I got a lot of other regrets, but from an investment standpoint, the regrets I have are the things that I didn't have the cojones to jump on and to chase after.
Man, any last words of wisdom that you want? I'm trying to think of another question, but I'm just like, that's such a good way to end the podcast.
I think if I could go back and do anything over again, I think I'd change the scale at which or change the balance of the time I invested in all the side hustles and the time I invested in my family. And I think that, we spend so much of the early years and early time of our lives exchanging time for money. And then we finally get to that point where we're exchanging the money that we have for time. And the most valuable asset that we have in life is our time. So let's build lives that we can spend with the most valuable people in our lives.
Well, with that, thank you for coming on. That was like a mic drop moment. That's just great advice for anyone at any phase of life, right? So, Jason, thank you so much. A little sneak teaser.
Thank you.
For everyone, we're going to have Jason on in a few months for something I'm helping to hold him accountable to. So you will get to hear more of Jason in the future, and I'm super excited for that podcast because it's going to be good. So with that, thanks for coming on, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Jordy. Thank you.